Welcome,
Thanks
Lindsay.
for having me, V.
Yeah, so excited to have you, Lindsay Hadley. One thing I really appreciate about you is your focus on impact, being the executive producer for Global Citizen Festival for the last 4 years, as well as also leading all these different initiatives, consulting with, high profile people in entertainment, family offices, really focusing on film, focusing on media, focusing on human experience, bringing people together, but through that lens of how can we do so with a greater purpose. And I think that you're obviously such a hidden gem. A lot of people I really trust as well have spoken very highly about you, and excited to dive in deeper to your story.
Thanks for having me, V. It's such a gift to be able to share, your story and be seen. And I love what you're doing with the podcast. It's
Thank
so
you so
cool.
much. Yeah. Well, I'd love to dive into just kind of a brief overview of like what has brought you to this point in time, what some of like the favorite milestones in your career are, and we can kind of begin there.
Yeah, well, thanks for letting me talk about that. So, um, you mentioned Global Citizen, but prior to that, which I was one of the founding members and the kind of founding executive producer and the first female executive at Global Citizen too, on the global team. But I before that I started doing humanitarian work. So right out of
Mhm.
college, I interned for a little nonprofit that was doing very much like boots on the ground humanitarian aid, like clean water wells, medical dispensaries, hospitals, schools. And I joined this little NGO and was traveling all around the world, Mexico, Thailand, Peru, Kenya, doing aid work.
Mhm.
And then I got married really young. From where I'm from, it's really common. Utah, which was my home state, and at 21 got married, and then at 23 had my 24. Let's see, yeah, I got pregnant at 23, and so a couple years into this dream job I had traveling the world doing all this humanitarian service, I realized I was gonna have a problem trekking malaria-ridden jungles, pregnant and nursing and stuff, because
Mm.
I was doing a lot
Oh
of
wow.
remote work, like in the Amazon, where people never even seen a white person, and
Wow.
I was like, "Oh, I gotta re-envision my work, a little bit."
Yeah.
And so I moved into more like fundraising and administration. And
Mm.
in college, I had done several concerts to raise money for causes that I cared about, like clean water wells in Cambodia. I'd put on a benefit concert, and this will date me, but like my first national touring artist I produced a show with was Ben Folds Five. That's from
Mm.
like the late '90s and in early 2000s. Anyway, and so had was able to raise like $100,000 in a night. And I remember thinking in college, like that was pretty effective compared to what a lot of, other fundraising ideas would be. And it was fun and everybody loves music.
Mm.
I could get all my friends to work for me for free. So it was
Nice.
pretty cool. But like I ended up having my foray into being like a charity concert lady through Global Citizen, because I'd done several concerts and I'd done a music festival as well to combat anti-trafficking. This was like 2010. So way back in the day, I was doing these things and having success. And then I got solicited by what was called the Global Poverty Project, but it's
Mm.
now called Global Citizen. And they asked me to produce a music festival in Perth, Australia, which I did. We had John Legend and
Oh, cool.
a bunch of huge national touring Australian artists.
Mm.
And we ended up leveraging like an unprecedented $118 million for polio eradication at that event.
Mm.
And so that changed the trajectory of my career. And then I ended up coming to Central Park with the World's Oyster during the United Nations General Assembly meeting,
Mm.
producing the Global Citizen Festival the first several years, the first 3 years, and brought the first artist, the first money, AEG, that helped us produce it in Central
Mm.
Park, and was the chief development officer and then the executive producer there. And then in 2014, I started my own boutique consultancy. I had Global Citizen as a client for a little time, but
Mm.
they ended up moving people more in house, and my role was too senior to keep doing as a consultant. So ended up parting ways, like formally, but still friends with everybody. Just came yesterday and enjoyed the 12th years festival, and this
Wow.
it's super fun to go and not be, you know, in charge if anything goes wrong. It's fun
Yeah.
to just go enjoy
Yeah,
it. I
go
had a
enjoy
beautiful
it.
time. See all my friends. It's like a high
That's
school
great.
reunion to me. It's really
That's
fun.
cool. Do you get like super, super VIP because of
You
that?
know, yeah, we get hooked up.
What is that like?
It's really fun. Like this is the first year actually that I wasn't up on stage watching, you know, like they actually cracked down on like security at a level they haven't. Like nobody was up on stage anymore. I think the
Mm.
production and the security, but yeah, it's evolved over time. But yeah, you know, yes, premiere VIP backstage stuff.
In
It's
like the
super fun.
green room with Doja Cat
It's
and
super
like,
fun.
yeah, what's
I
up?
wasn't in the green room with Doja Cat this year, but I have done that many years and lots
Mhm.
of times. So yeah, but my funny enough with the celebrity piece is that my little boutique consultancy that I started, Hadley Impact Consulting, I've worked for 10 years with mostly
Mm.
people from the entertainment industry, mostly A-list talent, both
Mm.
in the music and film world.
Mhm.
So that's been my career basically, is just working with people who have a big megaphone that
Mhm.
care about things that matter, you know.
Mhm.
They're so talented and we respect them. I think, I mean, some people, I don't care about that world, but as much as everybody can say that, they are the kings and queens of our culture,
Mm.
and they do actually influence like what's going on in culture. So
Absolutely.
artists are quite powerful when they're, especially when they have the kind of eyeballs. And
Mm.
at the end of the day, everybody who's like, oh, I don't care about that stuff, they have someone they admire. They always have someone that they admire. It may not even be anyone in the entertainment industry or music. Maybe that's not your thing, but it may be like, we had Jane Goodall on stage last night, right? And
Mhm.
she's like
Oh
a
wow.
legend, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So whether it's Brene Brown or Jane Goodall, we all have thought leaders that
Mm.
have these platforms, and the power of being able to harness the attention they can get, the eyeballs that they can garner for something meaningful
Mm.
is I found it to be incredibly useful to make a difference.
Wow. Yeah, I really like your perspectives on it because absolutely, I think that there's so many people nowadays flocking to social media. They're able to get attention in different ways. It's almost like the value of attention has been diluted, but I totally agree for the ones who really shape and mold culture with it. There's a profound impact, and there could be even more. And honestly, I think about that a lot of the time. I realize, like, some of these major players like the Kardashians and people like that, especially women, like there's just this deeper curiosity that I hold for like how could they, yeah, what else could they be doing and like what is the impact? And I think we can all agree that I remember like back in the day, Kylie Jenner,
Mhm.
she was like made fun of endlessly for those
Mm.
lip injections,
Oh,
right? Do
yeah,
you remember that
I
time?
do actually.
And then
She was the OG of lip injections.
yeah, exactly, like, she was just, like, made fun of for that, and then, obviously came back, started her lip kit brand that, launched her on the path to being, like, a billionaire. Good for her for making, lemonade out of lemons for sure. But now it's just, like, it's so much more common, and there's, like, so many people I see on the street where it's, like, I can tell they're going for that exact Kardashian look and, the beauty standard that has been
Mm.
propelled into our culture from the Kardashians is,
Mhm.
like, it's truly actually made an impact,
Mm.
for better or worse.
Yeah,
So
great point, for better or worse. Like,
yeah.
so if we can have external influences and individuals, maybe like myself, my team, the people in my industry that can help direct and point that attention to something that actually really diminishes suffering in the world,
Mhm.
like that's I think something an idea worth chasing after.
100%, and that's something I wanna dive into with you is, like, how do you help, you know, these celebrities obviously and I'd love to better understand kind of the landscape that you're dealing with when you work with them, but, like, obviously, they have a lot of power, they have a lot of resources, they have a lot of influence, like, how do you help them see that light at the end of the tunnel of how to, proceed with the nuance to actually change the
Mm,
world or shape things and not just do things for, like, maybe their benefit or the incentives?
yeah.
Is that something that, you feel they're receptive to, or does it really take, like, lining up those
It's
incentives?
a great question. For the most part, most high profile people, by the time they've made it, because it's been a incredible journey, even when they like pop up overnight and we're like, oh my gosh, this new, act on that's on everyone's radar. It's like they've been slogging away and building their careers like the rest of us, right?
Mm,
And so when they finally pop and make it, generally speaking, they've lived a lot of life or had a lot of experience already, even if they're really young when they're doing it. Like the work and the journey has been pretty arduous. And so most of them have, from their lived experience, they're a passion they already care about. Sometimes they don't, and that's when we can influence like what they get directed towards. Or sometimes, they tangentially like know about an issue, or they have like a loved one who struggled with pediatric cancer, for example, or they understand what it's like, and then they get asked to participate in something, and they're like, yeah, that resonates. But generally speaking, they're already like full steam ahead, like this is my cause and this is what I care about and these are the things I'm passionate about. And so what I've done for my consultancy is work with them to help amplify the thing they care about. And even Global Citizen, for example, and everything I'm doing now, including now what I'm doing is producing film and television,
Mm.
with an impact lens. They have something that they're already working on, it's their project. So instead of us asking them to get behind what we're building, we get behind them what they're building, and in turn they get behind us. And
Mm.
so, for example, Global Citizen is the umbrella narrative is around ending extreme poverty, and it's all around the sustainable development goals. And so the first years we had like Alicia Keys, and she cared about malaria issues, and we had the Foo Fighters, and they were more like poverty in general,
Mhm.
and we had people like Hugh Jackman and his wife, his former wife, Deborah Lee Furness, and they cared about vulnerable children getting adopted or whatever it was. So people have different issues they care about,
Mm.
and we would just give them 60,000 people on the Great Lawn and 33 million people watching live and a chance
Mhm.
to talk about it. And in doing so, became the most star-studded charity event ever. I mean,
Mm.
to date, like it's bigger because of
Mhm.
its sustained engagement over 12 years. It's bigger than like Live Aid or any of that because they were one time.
Yeah.
So these, like, I don't think anyone has harnessed celebrity in cause as
Mm.
well as Global Citizen, which is really neat. At scale like that, for where it then hits grassroots and top down commitments from government and stuff. So
Mm.
even now, like, so I've started this film fund called Harbor Fund,
Mm.
and we are getting celebrities to our events and engaging with us because they're pitching their film
Mm.
and the thing they're passionate about, their pet project. And so, I think one of the mistakes people in the charity world, and if you say you have a brand or a product, is like trying to go wrangle a celebrity for you. That's a term they use, wrangling. I don't even
Mm.
like that term. It's like you're moving against the grain. My mentor this taught me to follow tailwind, like on a plane. You can do headwind or tailwind.
Yeah.
Tailwind is when something's already moving that way. So find someone who already cares about the thing, and then work with them and support
Totally.
what they're doing, and in return have it benefit you in some creative way.
Yeah, when you said wrangling, I just imagine like someone at a rodeo with like
Exactly.
trying to, like get
Lasso
that
'em.
get that celebrity.
Exactly. That's exactly, and that term is so funny
Oh my
because
gosh.
it's kind of dehumanizing, and it's
Yeah.
missing. It's treating the talent like an object, a little bit. Like we want them to come serve us. They're a vehicle to get our dreams come true. And a lot of nonprofits posture to the entertainment world that way, and that's why they don't get a lot of traction or a lot of
Mm.
success. But if you build something that backs what they care about, now
Mm.
you're valuable, and
Mm.
so it's a different paradigm. It's just give first, value create first,
Mhm.
be recklessly generous, and then like figure a way for that to then also benefit you.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very clear strategy for building like a real trust driven relationship where,
Yeah,
it's more about alignment than like, the transaction. And I think
right.
it's really interesting actually hearing you say that. It makes me curious about your personal experiences and like if there's a story that comes to mind around potentially a celebrity that you got to know and realize like you really liked and someone that you're actually, friends with now or co-create with now ongoing. And I'm wondering if that's happened to you.
Yeah, totally. So many. I mean, many of them in my career, I've worked more closely with their management or agents. I meet them
Mhm.
and we have interactions, but the close, or maybe the person who runs their nonprofit,
Okay.
becomes where the deep relationship comes or whatever as a consultant. But I've really enjoyed recently, working with Katie Kirk and Jared Butler, who are on our advisory board for my fund.
Mm.
And I met Katie actually, funny enough. I knew her from Global Citizen.
Mhm.
She had been involved and supportive, and so had Jared Butler. Jared Butler's
Mhm.
best friends with one of my best friends, and so we spent Christmas together. Like I love him. He's an actual dear friend. But he joined us at Global Citizen the first or second year. I think it was one of the first 2 years, and he was so wonderful because now, every celebrity has been on the Global Citizen stage, but in the early days, he was taking more risk. It was a new thing. And so I'm so grateful to those original artists and talent that like Hugh Jackman and others that were like backing us because it made it all possible. But you know, Jerry is so great. He when he agreed to come, we're doing the first ever
Mm.
film festival at Necker Island
Oh,
with
wow.
Sir Richard Branson.
Cool.
To feature our slate of films that we're doing for the Harbor Fund. Our
Mm.
fund is like actually the first of its kind. It's a 501c3 tax exempt entity.
Hmm.
So philanthropists can donate into it for a specific film or television show, become executive producer, help underwrite the series or the
Oh,
or the
cool.
movie, and then commission essentially this beautiful film into the world the way they can a piece of art to,
Hmm.
to the Louvre or something.
Oh, cool.
And then we take equity positions in that as a fund, and the returns come back to the fund that are there assigned to perpetually make more films and stories that make a difference. So it's the
Mm.
first structure like that in film and television, and so getting huge names in the entertainment industry has been such a beautiful thing. Like Patty Jenkins, the director of Wonder Woman, she's doing the new Lego movie, and
Mm.
she was asked to be the first female director for Star Wars. She's won an Oscar
Cool.
for Monster with Charlize Theron. She's just a phenomenal human being. So she's joined our board. Um, as I mentioned, Katie Couric, I met her horseback riding in Patagonia, and I
Mm.
hadn't seen her in 10 years. I heard her voice, and
Wow.
she had her hat, her like helmet on and glasses, and so I couldn't see her, but I like looked over and I was like, Katie, and she was like, what? So we started talking and had lunch and dinner, and started
Wow.
engaging on Zoom and stuff. And she's so passionate about
Mm.
using her incredible megaphone as
Mm.
being one of the most trusted faces in journalism
Mm.
to produce film and television that matters.
Mm.
And so she's all about impact. So I've been really grateful to collaborate and work with her on the Harbor Fund and the film festival coming up. And then Sir Richard Branson's been so generous to let us
Mm.
use his island to bring high net worth people together to then pitch the slate of these films and shows. They're like the Blood Diamonds of the world, or films like Hotel Rwanda or Schindler's
Mm.
List or Taken.
Mm.
Like these are the types of shows and movies we're making.
Mhm. Mhm.
They have a narrative for
Mhm.
change, and they're really important. In the
Mhm.
past, people have done this leveraging philanthropic
Mhm.
dollars to make documentaries,
Mhm.
and I've executive produced a couple documentaries, and I love docs. I'm a nerd and I watch them, but
Mhm.
most people don't. They
Yeah.
are not really highly viewed. Most people want to come home and actually decompress and be entertained. They do not want to
Mhm.
continue to be stimulated and
Yeah.
learn. And so the best docs actually are quite entertaining. The best
Mhm.
ones, they're true narrative, like
Yeah.
archetypal journey story. But my argument is that the movie Aaron Brockovich did more than all the documentaries combined about unethical corporate greed. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So these movies, like Blood Diamond, more than all the docs combined for ethical supply chain, like they change the way we think of things, and they
Mhm.
stay in us and stay in our bones, and in the zeitgeist of culture, they're more commercially viable.
Mm.
So narrative, scripted, and television film, it's just an idea as time has come to like leverage philanthropic dollars into it. So that's what we're building with the Harbor Fund.
Wow. That's amazing.
Thank
Proud of
you.
you.
I'm super excited
As
about
you're
it.
saying this, I'm just like, I have some intros for you.
Oh, I
But
can't wait. I love meeting
that's
humans.
awesome.
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really amazing you've been able to progress so much on your journey and also do so while being, a partner, a wife, a mother. I'd love to hear you speak more to that because I think oftentimes um, women are kind of faced with this path of like, okay, go blaze the trail, go do the thing, go immerse in the world. And it's a
Mm.
lot of work building things from scratch. It's a lot of work fundraising and coming up with, innovative solutions for things. And then also to balance that out with family and, to find love. Like that's a whole other, even just to find love is like, in some ways, can be a full time job.
Oh yeah,
Depending on like
your
how
situation.
someone's relating to that time. So I'm curious what that's been like for you.
Well, I got married very young, as I mentioned, and so I haven't had um it was like predating, swiping left. I mean, it was like
Mhm.
it was just in yesteryear when people just like met each other organically and went on dates. I'm
Mhm.
I'm I'm 41 now, and like So I've been married 20 years.
Wow.
So, and I love this man and my children. Thanks for letting me talk about them. But my children are by far the most important, meaningful, and
Mm,
beautiful part of my life, and my husband.
mm,
Um, you know, like I just feel so lucky that I did get married young and had children young,
mm,
um, because yeah, arguably, could you say if I hadn't, like, I had many job opportunities that would mean I would have to, like, for example, I've not chosen to live in New York City because raising a family is so much more challenging.
mhm,
The cost of living is so
yeah.
insane, and the environment is less conducive. My family lives in Utah, and so like support from family and all those things were not on deck if I was
Mhm,
here. Yeah, if I had lived here, what I could have accomplished in my career, who knows, right?
mhm,
But I can honestly say that the gift of having children is so powerful for a woman's career. Like I would just
mm,
encourage any woman that's thinking,
mm,
well, would that detract from my career?
mm,
Yes, in certain ways, and in other ways, it'll exponentially see returns for you because the kind of clarity of purpose, the kind of skill set that you develop as a multitasker, where you have to like there's no better multitaskers in the world than moms. Like
mm,
especially a working mom. Their ability to be like, this is what's important, this isn't, and like incredibly, you know, almost like viciously protect the things that are the glass balls that we're juggling because some balls you can drop and some you can't. And so I've just found, in fact, most of my career I've hired working moms because
mm,
they've been so much more exceptionally high producing than anyone else. And so it's funny because I think a lot of really ambitious women, they're like, oh, that would be that if they're interested in a family, they think it's a deterrent. I found the opposite.
mm,
I found that it actually just creates this grit and this judgment, like an intuition that I don't think that you find any other way. I don't know. I'm not sure there's any other way that's because
mm,
there's it's so biologically wired to be nurturing and tender and focused and then if women don't get the balance right they will burn out. Like it's too
mm,
much. It is like impossible what these working moms do,
mm,
and so they have to figure out how to be like ruthlessly cutting fluff and things that don't matter, you know what I mean? And
mhm.
so but yeah, also like man, when you have that kind of love at home, like I feel like you can take on the whole world.
Yeah. Wow. I really appreciate you pointing that out and even just speaking to being biologically wired and what happens. And kind of noticed that I turned 28 this year and it's crazy. Like my hormones are just like a year ago, I did not think babies were cute. And now I'm just like everywhere. I'm like, oh my God, I like need one
It's
of those
so
soon.
awesome,
It's
Bee.
very, yeah, it's very humbling, but like I feel that there's so much creative energy flowing through me. There's a lot I want to create in the world. And I definitely know it's like my hormones fueling
Yeah.
that. And another thing I noticed too is I actually had this conversation with a dear friend. She was CMO of Aloe and scaled that
Oh, like
company
such a
from
great brand.
yeah, like a few 100 million in revenue to over 1 billion in
What a
3
queen.
years. Yeah, she's amazing and she's like beautiful, elegant, well articulated. Like she actually is like in touch with her feminine energy
Oh, I
and
love that.
yeah, I'm very impressed with her. And what really left an impression on me was her story when she was sharing it with me. She told me she was like a lot of the motivation
Mm.
and the inspiration that came to me during that time was from the foundation of love that I shared with my husband. And the
Beautiful.
love between my husband and I really allowed me to go out in the world and perform and create and just build with
Yes,
precision.
I agree with that.
And
Amen.
yeah, honestly, I've told her, I'm like, you've inspired me to like
Yeah.
shift into that phase of life where I'm like, okay,
Yay.
I'm ready to find hubby because I do feel that like when like love is one of the most inspiring forces in the universe
Unequivocally.
and when it's stable and when it's consistent and when
Yeah.
it's healthy, it's just like it's such a
Yes.
catalyst.
I
Yeah.
could not have done anything I've done in my career, I feel like, without that as a foundation. I agree with her. Like, I've had some strain in my family of origin. Like I've had some turbulence from my like siblings and some
Mm,
parents at some point. It's beautiful now with my parents. We went through a lot of work,
mhm.
thanks to therapy and like all that stuff, and we grow and self-actualize. But Yeah, like the it feels like a ball and chain, like just soul sucking when there's interpersonal turbulence with people that you love, or like,
Totally.
what should be your tribe that holds you, it's like, so it's devastating and heartbreaking. In some ways it does create other resilience, right? And
Mhm.
you learn to love yourself, you learn to get that love from God or from other people, and you learn what love feels good and doesn't, so it's
Mhm.
not, we don't always get the perfect situation. But the beautiful thing about marriage and family is, like, you can hyper fixate on creating the world you didn't have as a kid. You can
Mhm.
actually, like, break patterns, come up with new ways of being and relating. And I, as I get older, I realize how much of it is also kind of luck. Like, uh, just humbly saying, like, I think marriage is hard work, but
Mhm.
but like, if you find someone who's not willing, when I say luck, you can't control the partner, right? So
Mhm.
if you find someone who's not willing to do the work
Mhm.
to repair when there's rupture, or
Mhm.
they can't look at their own demons and fight them, and they're not willing to stay yoked with you,
Mhm.
yeah, like, that sucks, because there's people in my life that I would love to I'd go to the ends of the earth to, like, make things better. But if
Mhm.
they don't want to opt in, you have to respect the vote
Yeah.
that they're like, I'm out. And you're like, oh, sad. Because
Yeah.
it's a matter of time in any intimate relationship, any business, marriage, children, parents, siblings, any intimate relationship where you do enough time and you're in close enough
Mhm.
proximity in saturated amounts that you will have rupture.
Mhm.
Human beings are flawed. We hurt. We're insecure. We're triggered. We have misunderstandings. We're just limited in capacity. We
Mhm.
get tired. We get grumpy. We get hormonal. I mean, so many aspects to the human experience will guarantee, if you have enough proximity, there will be some kind of rupture, some kind of
Mhm.
misunderstanding, some kind of hurt, some kind of wounding. Sometimes, or, we hear the phrase hurt people, but, like, heal people too.
Yeah.
The question
I like
is,
that.
can you repair when there's rupture?
Mhm.
And some people are willing to do it for some, and they're not for others, and it's work to repair. And one of the things that I've just found is, like, people that are willing to repair with me, those are like treasures. Like, do not let those
Mhm.
people go. Like, pay close attention to the
Mhm.
friends that will be willing to have a hard conversation with
Mhm.
you. You might even be like, this is a lot of drama, this is too much, I just want surface, like, don't go there. It's like, that person is handing you something that most of the world won't do.
Wow. Yeah, I actually really appreciate this because I have a so how do I explain this? But for the last 2 years, I was pretty nomadic, and it was a function of like kind of got into this social flow of going to all these amazing events and gatherings, and I was curious about what's next. So I'm like, I'm gonna go out and explore and like be a part of this. And I realized that, to see someone, to spend my time, like I'm spending at least $500 because I have to fly in and I have to fly out, right?
Yeah,
And so it really distilled my network because
serious investment.
yeah, I realized like, yeah, and the money's not what's important, but it's just like the fact that like there was a sense of conviction of like, am I gonna take the time and like,
Hmm.
put money into seeing this person? And my inner circle became very small. And I feel that in that process, I adopted this value system of like, this is a kind of the way I want to practice relating, whether it's like, personal, romantic, family. Like, I just want to be in a devotional, giving feedback loop
Mm,
where it's just like a sense of presence, care. I learn that person, I understand their needs, I'm proactive to provide that, I'm thoughtful. It's
beautiful.
like a state of giving and then receiving that too, and really building trust from that vantage point.
Mm.
And I've had some experiences because like life moves very fast, and I feel like I've had these experiences where I almost reverse engineer friendship where I'll meet someone that I
Mhm.
feel like there's compatibility and chemistry.
Yeah,
I'm like, let's just start at our highest potential. Like, let's just be best friends until proven
I
otherwise.
love it.
And then at least we're shooting for like, something really meaningful long term. And if we don't get there, it's very illuminating to like, okay, what is like the core issue for that person or the core issue for me, or what is like the main, friction that's happening and the dynamic that's inhibiting its fullest potential. And I had this experience happen actually with a female friend where she's younger. She's like, 4 years younger, in a different phase of life for sure. Because as a woman, it's like every year of the 20s is
Oh
like
yeah, big
so much
years.
growth. And I told her, I'm like, I really need someone who beautiful, articulate, smart that I can bring with me into, some of these different gatherings and events where I'm with high profile people, family offices. Like, I feel there's a real level of refinement and
Mhm.
elegance that needs to be carried, a level of precision for navigating those spaces. And I took her with me all summer, and we were like Ibiza, Saint Tropez. We're in a villa in
Fun.
southern Spain, with some very prominent families. Like, she kind of got like the full, yeah, like almost like the tasting platter of like
How
different
fun.
aspects of my network, um, and really working through with her, like giving, because I felt like it gave so much, and then with her, like I'm kind of like, all right, there has to be some
Was it
reciprocation.
yeah.
I'm like, there needs to be like, if I'm 100% managing social life, relationship management, negotiations of
Mhm.
like the
Opportunities, all the
situations, yeah, it's like I need you to learn me and understand me and be thoughtful. Like, if I like green juice, maybe providing that. If you know that, like, treating me to a meal every so
yeah.
often, I'm like stressed because like I just navigated like, planning this whole trip for us, like gifting me a spa day.
Yeah.
And it's actually been really helpful
I love
to
that.
start with like, let's just go for the gold, because then it's like I can really see someone's character
Yeah.
and like what doesn't fully click if like we're not able to kind of achieve that. And then there's like this period of time where it's like, can we grow into that? And if not, if it's like mathematically it doesn't click after a certain amount of time, it's like, okay, let's just, transition, and it's okay to like have incompatibilities. But I feel like it saved a lot of time and energy.
Oh, I love that, V. So, did you have that conversation up front with her? Were you like, "Hey, I would expect that you would do these
Yeah.
things," or did it come up when it wasn't happening? Out of curiosity.
Um, it came up after a while. Like, I basically was like, okay, like enough time passed where I'd given quite a lot,
Mhm.
and there are situations that happen where there is some behaviors that actually damaged my
Mhm.
reputation
Mhm.
and like hurt relationships of mine.
Mm. I'm
That she
sorry.
like, she didn't mean to, but like
It did.
it happened. And so I
Mhm.
just told him like, listen, like I'm gonna need there to be a balancing because now it feels asymmetric.
Totally.
And like you're providing good energy, and and you inspire me, and like, you're amused to me, like I really enjoy your presence, but like I'm also providing good energy, and like
Yeah.
like if we're both meeting each other, like we provide good energy, and
Yeah.
then I'm dealing with this huge logistical burden on top of that. Like, there needs to be an evening out, and that needs to look like, showing up more financially as an example. If I'm doing all the stuff that takes up time, like gift me a meal here and there, like gift me a spa day, or just being more thoughtful, caring,
Yeah.
like proactive, finding the things I like, providing lunch or food
Yes.
if I'm like busy navigating stuff. Um, and then if I don't see the behavior change, for me, I really feel life needs to be the intersection of logic and magic. And
Ooh, I
so,
love that line,
yeah.
V.
If I don't see like the behavior change, I mathematically know like, okay, this isn't gonna be evolving into like the state I'm trying to practice with another human in the timeline that like I need it to be that.
Mm.
And it makes sense to just kind of transition that and kind of focus on like prioritizing someone else to like be in that practice.
That is so mature of you, and to have that conversation, those are hard conversations, and I hope that individual took the gift that you were giving them, which is like, here's a roadmap. By the way, they don't have to opt in. But like, it's so reasonable and so understandable what you're doing, and I admire you really young doing that. Like, I'm in my 40s and just starting to have those some of those conversations. Like, hey, I love you, and this is why I gave you this opportunity. I do a lot of giving, a lot of including a lot of mentoring. It's just
Hmm.
my nature. I find a lot of joy
Hmm.
in a real sense too. I feel more relevant and needed when I'm creating a lot of value, right? So
Hmm.
some of that's based on some insecurities, and you got to constantly calibrate and understand, is this, I always say this, but is it to myself now, I always say this, but is this from love or for love?
Hmm.
If it's for love, it'll end up damaging in the end. It'll end up being, counterfeit. I'll have strings attached, expectations. It's not going to work. So I say, if it's
Hmm.
from love, then I have no strings attached. And I can do things from love and expect that there is also like energetic, like you said, not asymmetry. So I love your maturity in having that conversation.
Mm.
It's fun because the people that I've had that conversation with in the recent years, they've been so beautiful about some of them. Have most, I would say, most have been so beautiful about acknowledging, like, gosh, you're so right. Like, I've been not great. I've not
Mhm.
contributed like you have, and I'm not. And it's not that I expect them to get on the scale financially. Like in many cases, they can't. They cannot even, there's no comparison into like the financial or the opportunity values because of
Mhm.
where I am in the leverage point in the value proposition. But like you said, these little things, those
Mindfulness.
are enough because I enjoy you and love you and your love and your interactions are so positive. It's these little things that are cues of you're like jumping up and seeing and meeting needs and understanding that I also am
Mhm.
not this just like a vortex to take from, you know what I mean? Like, so
Totally.
I really think I commend you for having those hard conversations. I hope
Yeah.
that went well. And if they didn't,
It's in process, so we'll
okay, cool.
see.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I think at the end of the day, and thank you for acknowledging that. And I'd love to like learn more what your perspectives on this have been, but like my perspectives when I was younger, a lot of my female friends, there's like a utility of our connection. Like a lot of my friends in high school, it's like we hung out because like we were there, and we just like could look hot
Yeah.
and like hang out with guys together, and like we would hang out and watch movies and like hang out, play on our phones. Like there wasn't like a deeper sense of care or a deeper sense of understanding each
Community and
other.
stuff.
Like
Yeah.
I first started having that in college with
Hmm.
my female friends, and then as I've progressed, it's been so much easier to develop friendships with women who are a decade or more older than me, to
Yes.
kind
Yeah.
of meet at that depth. And um, I guess my hope is that, like, I think in general, based on the structures of our society, a lot of women are, in competition with each other.
Mm.
And we see this because actually it's funny, like on dating apps, for example, women swipe on like 5% of guys. So there's like all these women who want 5% of, the
Wow.
male
That
population.
doesn't surprise me, but I've
Um,
never heard that statistic.
yeah. And yeah, also with opportunities, even like, making money with beauty, modeling, there's just so much competition instilled, I think, between women. And like what I hope for women, what I hope for myself, what I hope for, anyone who's out there really trying to see the potential of human connection is like, can we define what it actually means to be true support systems for each other, and then
Mm.
commit to that practice and
Mm.
unify for that practice.
Mm.
Because I think we were both touching on this. Like I've never really had like a female mentor in business that has like really put me on opportunities and like really helped me grow. I've had female friends that I've been inspired by in that sense,
Yeah.
but none that have like really, moved the needle. And I know you're saying like you
Yeah.
had a similar experience, like
Same
just
thing.
all male mentors.
It's all been men. The major mentors in my life professionally have been men, and I
Mhm.
part of me recognizes that's also a statistic game. Like
Mhm.
women were not in positions of power in the generation previous to me, right?
Mhm.
So, but they are now for you. You're young enough to find these women, which I'd love to introduce you to some that, and
Absolutely.
I'd love to help you too. I
Yeah,
think you're
thank you.
incredible, but like I, my my experience, I think it's interesting you said women are competing. Like I'm married, so I'm not competing romantically with women, but I think we're all competing essentially in the free market in some sense because
Mhm.
there's a meritocracy, and you're trying to create as much value or value is given, and you're moving, and it has to be competitive for it to be valuable, right? For the utility of it
Mhm.
to be valuable. And yet there's a way of being and competing that is a different value system. It's an other centric approach that I can honestly say, I'm not perfect in it, but it is my core value to be more abundant thinking.
Mhm.
And I think most people know me as being really generous with my network, very generous with resources and opportunities. And I don't, I don't think it's because I'm this like, you know, beautifully spiritually enlightened human. I think it's just like dumb smart. Like it actually, I believe, even just I do it from a place of just it feels like the right thing to do. It makes me feel better about myself as a human,
Mhm.
but it actually pays off. Like long-term accounting pays off, and there's a lot of research that shows. So, for example, my mentor, who was the greatest option trading options trader in history. He, at the peak of his career, was trading at $2 trillion a year. He's based out
Wow.
of Chicago. He passed away during COVID.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm.
His name was Joe Ritchie. He was magic. He was like,
Mm.
if Dumbledore and Gandalf and Yoda had a baby, this was this guy who's just
Wow.
so yummy and magical. But Joe, after he sold his company, um, for a significant exit, he had access to some of the greatest analysts, because he'd been doing so much in the industry, and he decided for his own personal portfolio to look at the publicly traded companies, not based on their vertical or projections, not what normal analysts would to invest, based on the character of the CEO. And they looked at factors that are qualitative in nature, but in clusters become quantitative. Things like, how do they treat their secretary? How do they treat their spouse? Even things like, do they believe in God or like a higher power, something outside of them? Totally agnostic, but just like, is there some, externality to their worldview that isn't, just just super like, hey, I'm in charge, I'm the God of my universe. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It could be humanism or whatever, but it's just something that's like bigger than themselves. Do they have good corporate social responsibility structures and HR, and like how do they treat people when they're late? Are they late? Do they value other people's time?
Mm.
What do these people who they work with say about them?
Mm.
And what's interesting is only 1% of these public traded companies were character driven CEOs.
Mm.
But he bet on them. And these are little companies. So this is back in the 90s. A little company just started called Costco. Jim Cynical was the CEO, was one of them that made that list.
Mm.
A gentleman named Howard Schultz from this little company
Mm.
called Starbucks. And so, Burlington Northern and other companies, anyway, it ended up outperforming the S&P and the Dow by significant, I think it was like 30% over time. It was
Mm.
just crazy. So it's like kind of what you hope. You hope the good guys win,
Mm.
not in the short term, but in the long term they do. So long-term accounting does pay off. And you look at people that are transactional, and we have examples in our culture, unfortunately, of people in some of the highest positions in business and in politics that are not character-driven people. They're not
Yeah.
people that are other-centric. They do not operate on the values that I would hope leaders
Mm.
would. And they're winning, and everybody sits back and is like, oh my gosh, they're winning.
Mm.
I guess I just believe that time is long and the universe bends towards justice and love.
Mm.
And I just don't really think that it will pay off in the end. I think the cost, even in their personal lives, you can't see the cost because we don't see behind the veneers.
Mm.
There's huge cost.
Mhm.
So using people, seeing them as a vehicle, burning, it creates long-term dehumanization of interacting with a human being transactionally.
Mhm.
It's not a small thing. It's not a trite thing. Like, I want to cry thinking about it, but it's like the conflicts we have in the Middle East, some of the greatest like heinous situations going on globally
Mm.
right now, they come from these tiny self-betrayals of not seeing another person as
Mhm.
ourselves. And
Mhm.
it comes over time on a macro scale. And
Mhm.
it's like it's millions of people making these decisions to not see
Mhm.
themselves in another.
Mhm.
And so when we show up in business with like attunement to this beautiful person in front of us, who maybe they're struggling, maybe they're not safe to do business with, maybe they're not trustworthy, maybe they're not a person you want to live with or marry or travel to Ibiza
Mhm.
with, whatever it is, that's different than seeing their humanity, holding them into their totality and trying to do the right thing by them,
Mm.
because that what that calls out of you.
Mhm.
And so in business, I've just found like it's sometimes burnt me, to like overgive and be recklessly generous with someone. I've had some betrayals and people use that and hurt me,
Mm.
but way more often it's brought
Mhm.
magic into my life.
Mhm.
So I do think giving abundantly, taking care of others, being other centric, and finding a way to simultaneously make sure you have your own oxygen mask on,
Mhm.
um, while just caring and nurturing for the other. Like, yeah, I think that's where logic and magic definitely collide.
Mm. Wow, well said. Yeah, I think there's a lot we just touched on with all those different areas. One thing that comes to mind, I mean, I really appreciate the way that you view relationships, and it seems like you lead from that, yeah, from that balance of understanding how to be precise and effective, but bring the warmth in. And I think sometimes female leaders get that bad rap of becoming like too type A, very masculine.
Yes.
Oftentimes, the reputation is like if they're partnered, it's like with a guy who's like more of the feminine energy in the relationship. And I'm curious if you can kind of speak to, especially for like any woman listening, especially
Mhm.
some of the younger women that are kind of evaluating like their career paths and like what it could be to be a female leader and go into business, different areas. How do you feel you lead effectively while being anchored into different qualities that are oftentimes associated with, feminine energy?
Mm.
I'm not one to be like this masculine, this feminine, this black, this white, but
Yeah, I
more
know what
tender,
you're saying.
caring,
Yeah.
softer, warm. Yeah. What does that look like for
Yeah,
you?
I think the tension, like we all have masculine feminine energy, and in really proficient people can play them like they can the keys of a piano, like up
Mhm.
and down the scale. And I think that being aware that there's a tension, and that essentially like some people are in their core more masculine, men or women, and some people in their core are more feminine, and I'll call that energy, it's like you said, more of a flow and a following and playfulness and more nurturing, right, more
Mhm.
tender, all of those parts of. And there's some people who are just naturally that way, and then there's like the warrior and the protector and the protagonist and the visionary, right, and
Mhm.
it's more masculine energy, what if you will. I think the tension of that is super sacred work, and people have to work that out. And what I think is tragic is that our modern culture, and like you said, our corporate workspace and just the free market tends to push women into masculine energy when that's not in their core.
Mhm.
And it's painful, and tends to, but I think it's pushed men into that when it's
Mhm.
not their core. I think all of us should be a totality of all those parts, right? And like, but the conversation that we're even having now is so much more nuanced than men have these roles, men are built this way, women are this way, right? Like, and
Mhm.
that it was of yesteryear. Like our parents would have had a much more black and white
Mm.
narrative around this. The nuances are incredibly important, and that tension, the paradox of it, is such powerful utility, I found.
Mm.
So in my marriage, like my husband, he's a very chill, easygoing Aussie surfer, so
Mhm.
all of those things are not conducive with tenacity, right? Like generally. I
Mhm.
mean, he's very hardworking. He's never sitting around. He's never like just, taking a nap. Like he's works hard. He shows up. He's an amazing father, a very loving and doting husband, very agreeable personality. And his temperament, because he's so agreeable, puts him in positions where conflict avoidance is kind of a super helpful, useful tool for him.
Mm.
But at a certain point, that becomes maladaptive. And in certain situations, that becomes maladaptive, right? So while he struggles at addressing conflict, a lot of these personalities, they're the white personalities, whatever you want to call them, like he's so likable. He's everybody's favorite. Like he's the
Mm.
best. And he's just gentle and humble and unassuming. Well, very few feedback loops in his life because he's been self-employed most of his career.
Mhm.
He hasn't, so he's a builder now, a general contractor, but like he works for himself. Before that, he worked in our consultancy and was a graphic designer.
Mm.
He doesn't have any feedback loops of how that can be maladaptive, except for in intimate family situations where he avoids conflict, because
Mm.
sometimes conflict, like Jordan Peterson says, conflict delayed is conflict multiplied,
Mm.
which I totally have learned that's true.
Mhm.
Like if you have something that needs to be addressed and you just put it off, how you address it and when you address it needs to have wisdom. It's not That's not an excuse to be like at something all the time, it's super
Totally.
abrasive and blunt, but it's like conflict delayed is conflict multiplied. So lovingly addressing, oh, there's tension here. This needs to be untensed. It's just like a muscle in your back. Like you leave that tense over time, you're gonna have
Mhm.
injury, right?
Yeah, totally.
And so ultimately my husband's tendency to avoid
Mhm.
conflict has created more situations where I've had to be the person who addresses whatever it may be, financially, interpersonally, relationally, spiritually, business, whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
So then I'm stepping in, and that creates a disbalance with the polarity of masculine and feminine, right? And so I'm constantly like becoming more aware of that. I didn't even know in my 20s, like entering into these different
Mm.
roles. I knew that we weren't having traditional gender roles, and that like,
Mm.
we were sharing more of the roles together, which I see a lot of women and men doing now, which I think is
Mm.
great.
Mm.
It's just a clarity of like being more conscious about it. Like if you're
Yeah.
going to do it. So there's a thing called, some research, I can't remember where I read it, but fascinating research about women And the second job, they call it the management part of the household, or like there's this second tier where they come, men and women are both going to work, and then they come home, and the women on top of that are working out, the teacher appreciation gift, the birthday party. They're working out, making sure they're caring for their sick mother. They're the social coordinator. They're making sure the home's decorated for the holidays. They're doing the gifts. They're putting, and all this second tier job that women are doing on their own because they've been socialized and nurtured to do that,
Mm.
and men are not. And then like what's happening is then these men are kind of missing that there's this absolute fatigue, decision making fatigue, stress on these women that they can never realize. I think some of it's biological and some of it's
Mm.
socially constructed. And so being aware and having these conversations and being like hyper attuned to like human nature and what's on
Mhm.
deck in culture today. And then you add the fast pace of social and tech and like how global we are, like the nomadic
Yeah,
piece. Oh, it's a lot.
a
So
lot.
being aware of it and having conversations like we're having now and saying like, oh, when I enter into this with my husband, if I'm a young, like going back to your question, if I'm a young woman and I want to have marriage and I want to have a business, but I don't want to end up being with like a really feminine man, like, you have to negotiate this like daily with yourself, God, and your partner. Like
Mm.
it really isn't something that's just like, well, I just, you know, it might be early on. Like I've never taken out the garbage. Like that's something I don't know whatever happened from day one in my marriage. I don't take out the garbage for
Mhm.
whatever reason. My husband does that, right?
Mm.
And so there's certain things from he's never decorated the Christmas tree. Like I do that.
Mhm.
Like for whatever reason,
Yeah.
I'm the one that does that. So there are
Yeah.
some things where you just slide into, but there's a lot of work in the middle that you have
Mhm.
to like
Totally.
have conversations about.
Do you feel like you felt more pressure to be that breadwinner because your partner is like more laid back, chill, surfer vibes?
Totally. Yes,
Mhm.
100%. And being vulnerable, it's been painful and hard for both of us.
Mm.
Like, I think that that is socially, again, that's a social expectation and biological,
Mhm.
because women, I've
Like for
carried,
men to be the breadwinner?
yeah, I think it's
Mhm.
biological, not just it's social expectation, especially in my culture. I grew up in like, LDS like Mormon culture. It's hyper
Oh.
patriarchal, right? So that's number one, an expectation I came from culturally and
Mhm.
historically. It's Western culture in general, but it's also biological. I'm understanding more as I learn more and become more compassionate for both of us. Like as a woman, I've carried 3 children to full term, breastfed
Mhm.
them for a year
Wow.
each. I've had 6 years of complete vulnerability. And then when I have the little, like, where I'm literally like in a, I will call it parasitic, like that sounds terrible, but like where they're literally, they're living off me as a host, like my actual body. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, it sounds so bad because that's such a negative term, but what I
Yeah.
mean is there's a symbiote where this baby literally is relying on its life on
Yeah.
me. And
Yeah.
and so that vulnerability where I'm caring for another human being like that,
Mm.
but then in the early years, even the first couple years, there's still like
Mhm.
because of that bond, because of the biological connection, because of the breastfeeding and the carrying the womb, that child is more, there's an attunement and a bond with the mother child that's
Mm.
biologically designed. And so you're more vulnerable. So the need for security is actually kind of what you're talking about with your friend. Like I'm out here spending all these RPMs over here and like you need to step up and care for me because this
Yeah.
is un unsustainable otherwise, right?
Totally.
So there's an actual biological need. In addition to that, like women are more vulnerable in the world. We know about sexual assault and rape and all that stuff. In addition to that, women are not as strong. In actual physical, not
Yeah.
all women, but most women
Yeah.
biologically, could be punched in the throat by a
Oh
dude
my
in two
god.
seconds and be taken out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I the reason I just had this thought of I used to do jujitsu and boxing. I'm about to
Yes.
get back into it. And like I just remember like no matter how much technique I learned, like if someone's just big enough, they could just fall on me and I'd be out.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
You
Like
know?
one punch to the
It's like
face, the force. So you're talking about
yeah.
physiology, right? So when you recognize that you're literally not hyperbole, not in some esoteric way, let less secure than
Yeah.
than your male counterpart, your need for security to be provided by them is innate.
Mhm.
And when you start to recognize that, it's psychosomatic, it's parasympathetic, like you actually really do need. And so, funny enough, like I have outperformed my husband pretty much our whole marriage, except for the first couple years. He was a stockbroker before 2008 and was
Nice.
making more than me. But I've financially, you know, been been, at certain points, I mean, where it wasn't even comparable, and
Mhm.
that's tough. That's
Mhm.
a tough thing. It's not easy. Some
Mhm.
men are, he's never been jealous or begrudging, but it says things to both of us that, like you said, that are subtext,
Mhm.
culture, everything.
Mhm.
He's been so celebratory, so incredibly supportive. I couldn't have
Mhm.
done it without him. And I have compassion for myself that, yeah, like at the end of the day, I'm in the arena and like everyone's looking to me to make sure that we're provided for,
Yeah.
and that stress is very serious and um,
Mm.
not, I think, organic or natural state of like male women dynamics.
Totally.
So what we've come to do, what's funny, you can make up for it. You have conversations about it. You go to therapy. You go to God with it. it, it's a tension that's real, and they're the reality of so many women around the world. They're single mothers, they have husbands that are totally incompetent. I mean, they have people that, one of the things that helps me is like being hyper attuned to all the value he's bringing, being so grateful for that,
Mm.
and recognizing that we can do things to invest in his success and his ability, because he's actually very talented, and
Mhm.
be mindful that, like, how
Mhm.
can we support so that this isn't
Yeah,
so
you like
lopsided and
can
all those
help
kinds of
him.
things.
Yeah, for sure. I think that makes a lot of sense. I've always kind of thought about male female dynamics. At least for me, this is like what I've deemed to be like a successful dynamic for my happiness. But it's like a tree.
Hmm.
And a man represents the roots and the trunk, and a woman is the branches and the flowers.
Hmm.
And I always notice that I'm so much more effective at making money when I don't have to worry about money.
Hmm.
Like when I can just pull from, a stream of income, whether I've created that for myself or like someone else is
I
like
think that's true with
providing
most
that.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, then I can create from that and not have to be spread so thin of like, okay, I'm the provider and I'm also the creator. And I think what you're touching on is diving into these very complex dynamics where there's elements of you that are providing masculine and feminine stereotypical roles within the home. And he's also masculine, feminine stereotypical roles in the home. Like
Hmm.
being in that like intermixed yin yang just requires a lot of trust and depth and good communication.
Good call.
Um,
The trust was the key.
yeah, yeah, it's amazing. Honestly, it's just amazing. Like you could roll the dice that young and like end up in a
I know.
partnership. Like I always think about that because I've just now reached an age where I'm like, okay, I feel like I can trust myself
To
to
make
make
a
this
good choice.
choice,
Hmm.
and I understand the math of human behavior enough to make this choice. But
It
nonetheless,
still
I'm
can
still
lead.
like, oh my god, I wish I could have like 5 more years of
Yeah.
time. I wish I could just be,
And even
you
with
know,
all of your acumen, your brilliance, your heart, all that, life happens. People
yeah,
change. Tragedies happen.
that's
Someone,
true.
like somebody, I mean, people don't intend to be alcoholics. People don't
Mhm.
intend to have, you know, the market collapse and them losing their income and then building like crippling self-esteem issues. People don't come
Yeah.
into something and go, oh, I'm gonna end up having health issues that create chronic like caregiving fatigue and the other part. Like we don't, like, life
Yeah.
happens to us. So you can make these very informed decisions, like you said, logic and magic.
Mhm.
And yeah, the magic part, and by the grace of God, I got this amazing man. I will say we've really, really chosen each other.
Mm.
We really have. Like, it's
Mhm.
very easy to quit. And in our culture, we allow for it. We
Mhm.
really allow for quitting in marriage, and
Mhm.
something I think is toxic and quite frankly detrimental to humanity
Mhm.
is how quick we quit on
Mhm.
relationships, people, things,
Mhm.
structures, everything.
Mhm.
Like, I think that that's something our grandparents understood that we should actually go pay attention to.
Mhm.
Like when something was broken, they fixed it,
Yeah.
didn't throw it away. And I do think the
Mm.
institution of marriage has become, it's blasphemed. I mean, people don't actually believe in the institution. The idea of it originally, and I'm not saying I don't think people should stay in like terrible, painful, unrecoverable dynamics. I mean,
Mhm.
thank God there is divorce.
Mhm.
But I think that the quickness to divorce, the quickness to break up, the quickness to quit on
Mhm.
relationships. I mean, I have actual family members that like won't even work things out with me as a sibling, or whatever. And it's like, you know, I can't relate to it because I feel like that's the most important work in this life, is like, how
Yeah.
can we work through these things? Like, let's sit
Yeah.
down and love each other through this. But
Absolutely.
some people just, their capacity, their I guess their belief in themselves to be able to do that, whatever it is, like, um, And also, I just think we condone it. We're like, we've created a culture where it's okay to do that, where it's okay to opt
Yeah.
out. And like, I don't know. I think I think it hurts people. And I watch a lot of people go into like a second marriage or a new business, and they just take the same broken maladaptive wiring into it's a new environment, and it has very similar, different smell or shape, but ultimately, like, you have something that is maladaptive, it'll be maladaptive in a new environment, right?
Yeah.
So
Totally.
I really wish that we would talk more about what it takes to have grit, to commit to a person, being like, I'm all in, I'm not going anywhere,
Mhm.
you know? And it's not to say that there aren't moments. I think it's healthy to hold that is an option, because it's like, if you stay in something out of just sheer obligation, that's pretty tragic too,
Totally.
right? But I do think being all in, there's something about giving your heart totally away that is the most entrepreneurial, leadership driven, magical thing I think you could do.
Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I'm glad we've touched so much on relationships because I really do think that the foundation of connection in our lives is what allows for greater success sometimes being in the business world and navigating challenges and doing things. And there are some women who do it super alone, super independently, and I totally respect them, but I understand like just how difficult that is. And I think finding the right love, support, connection in life, the right balances, body, mind, spirit really helps to, yeah, achieve more. As I say, like if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. There's actually one final question that I have for you that, I'm so curious about because, um, you work at this intersection of impact, the celebrity, culture, entertainment, media, and also, being mission driven, purposeful, being a businesswoman that's juggling a lot of things in her life. And I think we can all agree, society definitely puts the women who are the beauty queens, the actresses, the models, the entertainers
Hmm.
on the pedestal.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I'm curious how that feels for you, how you've found your sense of identity and value
Mm.
in a culture where you may be working extremely hard and doing all these things, juggling all these things, maybe dealing with, female celebrity that
Mhm.
may have it relatively easy in the sense they have like a team that's
Mhm.
delegated all their stuff
Mhm.
and the power dynamic that may
Mhm.
feel like, well, what if you've earned, everything you're earning
Mhm.
actively, but
Mhm.
you still are not able to eclipse like the sense of
Mhm.
power
Mhm.
that maybe someone who at this point someone's writing all their scripts, telling them where to be, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
So
great question.
yeah, how do you like make sense of that?
It's a great question. And that is a very real thing, right? I don't I don't generally feel as victimized by that. And here's why. There's always some disadvantage. Like there's always another side of the coin, meaning you're absolutely right. Being beautiful, I have friends who are gorgeous, married billionaires, and their lives literally they just have this little plastic card, and they just that's their life, is just to spend somebody else's money because they're beautiful. I'm, without exaggeration, watching their life, but it's like the cost. There's costs to that though. Like you pay for something,
Mm-hmm.
like your inability to be independent. There's self-esteem issues that are pretty deep because they do know like they didn't earn it. This is just like, they have to navigate the politics of someone else's world that they're dependent on. There's subtexts of like all kinds of stuff. So whether you inherited money, you inherited beauty, or you inherited brains, like at the end of the day, sorry, I pointed to myself, but like,
Mm-hmm.
I tend to have done my stuff on sheer grit and acumen, and
Intellect.
yeah, I have intellect that yeah, others don't haven't been able to afford, but like, meaning haven't been blessed with to
Cultivated. Yeah.
utilize.
Yeah.
And the the those skills, whatever they are, like earned and or given, right? It's all by the grace of God that we go. Like at the end of the day, like you're given this set of cards you get to play, and you're all in because you're here, and you're the only exit is death. And so like you're in this life, you're all in, and you have these cards you get to play. And so kind of, while that's a very real thing you've
Mm-hmm.
identified and very tangible, I've been close enough to fame and wealth, people that inherit wealth, people that inherit beauty, to know that like there are costs to that too. And people don't have a lot of compassion or empathy for people in those situations, but there's a trauma in being like ridiculously beauty. I'm serious.
Yeah. Oh,
There's a trauma in being ridiculously wealthy.
I was like reading into Bella Hadid's story about how she's like just been depressed for like a very long
Yeah.
time and very unhappy and unfulfilled. And I know it's hard because like everyone strives for that position. And then
Right. And
to
it's like,
even
cry me a river.
conceptualize,
You
it's like,
you look like AI. Like,
yeah,
everyone's
AI
nice to
generated.
you, you know?
Yeah, like yeah, the power, the influence. But yeah, I totally agree. There's no yeah, there's no perfect place. It's
That's
just like
right.
finding that state of being within oneself of joy and happiness. And I think, you know, drawn what's always inspired me about your story and what's drawn me to you is just that sense of impact. And I think that's something I really find within myself, where you're touching on, you know, everyone has these different compilations, right?
Mm.
Beauty and brains, and or maybe one or the other. Maybe, you know, it's a communication skills, or it's like family support, or whatever it is. Like we all come, we're all born into this world with like different strengths and weaknesses. And my feeling is very much so that if I was blessed with, you know, beauty, brains, even if
Mhm.
I'm not the smartest or the most beautiful, a spark of ambition,
Mhm.
a sense of like ability to go out in the world and do it,
Mhm.
it's my duty to use that foundation and that platform to go create meaning and create wealth for others, and give to those who are not blessed with the same like compilation.
Yeah.
And I see that 100% in my family. Like me and my brother, we have the same brain, and we actually look very similar. But my brother was born, he had like a genetic thing where he was born without a fully functioning stomach valve.
Oh.
And so he's had two surgeries, and just like the complete difference in our lives. Like I've been able to, like, I dropped out of college, built robots, like designed AI for major companies, traveled the world. Like I've risked things to where like I've been financially motivated, made a bunch of money. I've also taken a break from all that. I've traveled and explored and experienced life without focusing on making
Mhm.
money, and been curious, like, what happens if like I'm not,
Mhm.
you know, letting this rule me. Because like there's so many people that spend their whole lives being ruled by money, and they never just pause and think like, okay, what happens if I don't let it rule me? And so I've done these experiments. I've been, you know, blessed to end up in the networks I'm in and do what I'm doing. Like I entered like family office and investing, literally from like the sheer, everything I've done is like just sheer skill of like me showing up and being willing to learn.
Mm.
And my brother literally has like the same spark brain motivation, and
Mm.
just his like physical situation
Right.
inhibits him. And
Exactly.
just like the struggle, he's kind of been like stuck where we grew up in school forever. Like he's done entrepreneurial things, but like he didn't have the network to like really fund it. So
Right.
like there's just been so many things where I see like, wow, my quality of life is like insanely better. And I feel like that's what allows me to go out in the world and be like, okay, I'm building and I'm creating with the mindfulness of up leveling the ones I love.
I
And
love that.
anyone who like at some point I'll just reach a point where it's like, if anyone's ever met me, like fill out this form, and like, yeah, I'm gonna give it to you in some way, shape, or form. Like
That's wonderful.
I just, yeah, I just really feel that like that's, you know,
Well,
it's
that
like a sense of
that
duty.
awareness and gratitude that you have for your circumstance is so important. And this is crazy, but the hard things that we go through, like I look at I no, I have people. I just got back from the summer of being in Cambodia with my children. We
Mm,
literally serve people in a trash dump community where every American pet lives better than the children running around in this actual landfill
mm,
growing up. I didn't even want my children. I threw away the shoes of my children after being there. I mean, they're actually like, decomposing bodies in the landfill, and the water is putrid, and they're living in trash.
mm.
I mean, parasites, like the way they talk about parasites, but they're actually just like steaming in the water. Like you can see it. Like
Oh my
it's actually
god.
something out of a horror movie, and these are
Oh
human
my
beings living
god.
like this. There's 1.4 billion people on planet Earth today living on less than $1.50 a day. And that's not $1.50 US in Mexico or in Cambodia. It's $1.50 a day relative to the US market. So imagine
Wow.
if you had $1.50 a day for all your food, all your medical care, all your housing, all your clothing, and your education. That's what 1.4 billion people live on. We live today better than kings of yesteryear because we have hot water, and
Mhm.
we can have more than one or two options of what to eat tonight. Like our our the gifting that is this life. And I've seen and been privy to and been proximity to suffering that just blows my mind. And yet relative suffering isn't that helpful sometimes, like comparative
Mm,
suffering, like it can be. And it's like we still wake up today, we still have pains, we still have shortcomings, we still have
mm,
heartache, we still have stuff that challenges, right? But what you just nailed there is this awareness and open aperture and opening your heart of being like, by the grace of God, I have what I have. It's what I've got. Let me play it the best I can.
mhm.
So looking at these beautiful actors, talented people, next gen wealth inheritors, wives of, that they're ladies that lunch, like, yeah, there's sometimes where I'm like, wouldn't it be nice, or like,
Yeah.
damn. At the end of the day, I'm like, you can play that game all day and guarantee anyone listening to this podcast
Mhm,
is could would be overjoyed
mm,
to not switch the lives of those people, right?
mhm,
Living in that situation.
mhm,
Um, because they're, but, and yet, I do believe in the paradox of it all,
mhm,
the resilience of the human spirit, the kindness, the attunement, the presence, there's all these qualities that come out of these people that come out of these horrific situations. They're
mm,
like utter gifts to the earth
mhm,
and to them in their lives. And yeah, it is our obligation to do something. We need to help. It's
mhm,
it's bigger than just like a philosophy or way of being. I
mhm,
actually think it's a imperative, it's a requirement, and I think it's actually like if we really turn away from like um places where we are not like living out our human potential, and which includes the care of other humans around us, um it will it does affect us, I think. I do believe we're eternal beings. I believe in like an ethereal other world, like a spirit world.
mhm,
I don't i don't think these things don't have consequences.
mhm,
And we're like, I've spent my whole life doing humanitarian work. Could I do more? Yes, all the time,
mhm,
every day. It's ridiculous. It's actually a tension that
mhm.
I constantly have to hold, because it's like I'm doing all this. I could do way more, and I see people around me doing way more than me, and like, and yet, in my mind, all of that is just something that we have to hold. We have to have conversations with. We shouldn't be unconscious about, right? Like the consciousness of it all is the part I think that's so powerful, and
Mhm,
we're all doing the best we can. But human beings are beautiful, and I generally believe most people are. I think everyone is actually good and divine and beautiful at their
mhm.
core, and then trauma and heartache and
Yeah, I feel like
situations.
all babies are like
Yeah,
fun and cute and
right?
sweet.
Perfect, right? It's like
I've
that.
never met an evil baby, but
Right,
I guess
exactly. And his
I don't work at
consciousness
a
comes
preschool or
in,
anything.
right? And we have all these tools and coping and trauma, like we figure our way in the world. But anyway, I just think, I mean, we're talking pretty esoteric and high level, but like I love that your heart is to give back, and that we need more people like that, and we need more of it. And
Mm,
conversations like this remind us, right?
totally.
Because like, I need daily asshole therapy all the time, because I can just be like, oh, the train is late, and
Yeah,
and then I'm short with the person next to me or something.
yeah,
Like this is just a constant reminder and a beckoning to betterment that we can
yeah,
do for each other. So thanks
totally.
for doing that for me today.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much for being on. It's been such a pleasure to have you, Lindsay. And
Likewise,
yeah,
thanks for having me. It was
yeah,
such a gift.
really appreciate the spectrum of things we touched on. So,
Thank
my
you.
pleasure.